We work hard so you can get hard.
That's a lot.
Woo!
I'm sure that was consensual.
It was fucking Carl!
Hey guys, Strictly Ball Business here. Your best pal Alec and Dalton ready to talk about the National Basketball Association. And lately, everybody's talking about the Warriors and Celtics, obviously. That's what's going on right now. It looks like the Warriors are going to maybe finish it out. Maybe the Celtics have more left in their tank. But for us here at Strictly Ball Business, we're going to talk about some other teams that are looking ahead to their offseason and trying to get to the finals next season or beyond. So first off, today we'll be talking about the New York Knicks, their offseason, what it's going to take to get them back into the playoffs after a disappointing season. We're also going to rank our top 5 role players in the NBA, which obviously can be kind of a subjective thing, talking about what a role player is. So we'll try to define that as well. And we'll talk about whether it's easier to build around a big man or a guard as your best player to be your star going into the playoffs. And we'll also look at an offseason blueprint for the Cleveland Cavaliers, a very exciting team who was, killing it for a lot of this season. They tailed off at the end, mostly due to injuries. And, we're excited to see what they can do next season. And after that, our last topic we'll talk about today is how Zion fits with this current Pelicans team. Obviously didn't play at all this year, but he's still the best player on that team. That's no doubt. So how does it all work out for next season? Anything I missed there, Dalton? What do we got?
No, that looks great. It's a great lineup we got.
It's a phenomenal lineup we got here today, guys. Strictly Ball Business. We literally only talk balls. New York Knicks offseason is what we're getting into today. We are breaking down the steps that it's going to take to get them back to the playoffs next year. Me and Dalton may not agree on everything that is going to get them there, but we're going to let you know both of our points here. So first off, I think the very first thing that they got to do in New York is free up some cap space. And how they're going to do that is they need to trade Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks somehow. If they can find a way to trade Julius Randle, great. But regardless, if you're trading Randle, I'm thinking you're going to be bringing some money back. So I think those are your 3 most likely trade candidates. And then on top of that, it's the same question the Knicks have been trying to answer for the last 20 years. Who's going to be their primary point guard? Who's going to be the guy to lead this offense? There's some interesting players out there. I really think that they should keep an eye on Jalen Brunson, Colin Sexton, and maybe even a trade for Tyler Hero. I think any of those guys would be great, and I think would really accelerate their rebuild here. And on top of that, I think they've got to re-sign Mitchell Robinson. Regardless of his injuries and his history, I think they have to do that. And so those are kind of my main things. Shedding those bad contracts the best you can. Bringing in a guy who's, healthy, can play you some big minutes at the point guard and can score, and then re-signing your guy, Mitchell Robinson. What do you think, Dalton? What do they got to do here to get over this hump?
You're right about the cap. I think it's going to be really hard to get off those caps. I mean, Fournier's contract alone, I like him as a player for his role, but you're not going to get off that contract. I don't think there's any way unless you're attaching a pick to it, and at that point, it's not worth it. Might as well hold on to him. I mean, they're set up good. I mean, we have a little different archetype on how to save the Knicks, and I have it's a huge shakeup for the team. I obviously am in the direction of firing Tibbs. I'll start there. I know we both agree on that. So they did well. They were 11th best defense this season, 10th in turnovers. Actually, they're 13th in 3-point efficiency. So that's kind of bright spots in what they were heading in. But 23rd in offense, 27th in field goal, free throws 26%, only 106 points a game. His offense does not translate in today's NBA, and that's kind of it. And I really think he does deserve a spot in this league, but as a defensive assistant coach. And I think that's it.
I totally think you go ahead. Sorry, I didn't.
Oh yeah, I think that there's tons of coaches that they should go into. I'll let you jump in. Just I think David Vanderpool, the Portland assistant, 7 years, 2 years, spent some years with the Wolves, now with Brooklyn. I think he's like, this is the spot. You give him a chance, you run with the new team. But that's on coaching. That's what I got. What do you think?
I would love to fire Tibbs. As a Timberwolves fan, that's always the first option, is to fire Tibbs if you've got him in your building. But don't you think if they were going to do that, they would have done it already? Like day one in the offseason? Like, why wait at this point and let Darvin Ham and Kenny Atkinson and other good coaching candidates go?
Because they're the Knicks.
I just don't think they're gonna fire him at this point.
I think this season is what breaks it. Yeah, I think this is the season that breaks it. I think there was a lot of coach turnover anyway. I think. Yeah. I don't know.
He's probably a mid-season firing.
He could be a mid-season firing, and that, like, the guy, if you pull in an assistant, or especially someone like even Mike D'Antoni at this point, like I don't think Mike D'Antoni is the right fit. I think you bring a young coach like a David Vanderpool, just like the Heat did with Eric Spoelstra, or even the Warriors did with Steve Kerr, where you look at him now and he's obviously a win coach now, but at the time of the hiring, he was first-time coach. I mean, it was like you bring him in and he builds the culture. So I think David Vanderpool's a culture hire, and you definitely need to change it there. But
yeah, so, I mean, I certainly think like a young coach is the way that they need to go. I don't think an old guy is gonna get things sorted out here correctly. And you may remember they hired Mike D'Antoni a few years ago and it didn't work out. I think they fired him maybe after one season. Yeah,
that was Melo and Jeremy Lin, right?
Yeah, Melo was definitely there. I'm sure Lin was too.
Yeah,
long time ago.
But so all things considered, they're doing well in the draft pick. They have the top 10 protected Mavs pick next year, plus their own. They have the 11th pick this year. I think they are one of the biggest trade-up candidates, them and the Wizards. I think they have a lot that they could move up, and I'll certainly get into that too. I think they should give heavy thought into trading Randall, which I will also get into later. But Evan, I don't know. I think you have to hold on to him. I doubt anybody's going to trade for Fournier. So could they? You talked about it in our last Kings video about Donovan Mitchell. Could they be a suitor for Donovan Mitchell, the Knicks? They certainly have some assets. I don't know if this is a better package, but I think this is something they do. They have to totally shake up the team. That being said, I don't think Julius Randle is a bad contract. I don't think he's a bad player. I think, does he deserve his contract? No. Does he deserve a contract, a large contract? Probably. I do think so. I think there's a lot of teams that he could really help out on. So this is my trade to the Jazz, and this is to shake up the whole team. This is in my mind, this is how you fix the Knicks. So you're actually getting Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell in this trade. It's Kemba Walker, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, and a 2024 first-round pick for Donovan Mitchell. They get back a borderline all-star. Kemba Walker's kind of a throw-in, but you're also taking on Mike Conley's contract, which I imagine the Jazz would love to do because they're not getting a bad contract back. Kemba Walker's only an expiring 9-year contract. You get a Julius Randle, who's an asset. You get RJ Barrett, who's obviously an asset. He's the young star to build around. Then you get Obi Toppin, some prospect in there. That he really hasn't gotten his chance with the Knicks. I don't think he's gonna be that good of a player anyway, but I do think he'll be better off not on the Knicks. And then you get a first-round pick out of it. What do you think there?
I think more likely, it's going to take more first-round picks in the future to get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, and it's probably RJ Barrett and like 3 first-round picks to get him. But I think Donovan Mitchell maybe wants to go to New York. I know New York definitely wants him. They need a superstar, and they would give up whatever it takes to get him. If they're able to shed Randall in the process of making it happen, great. Otherwise, honestly, Mitchell and Randall could be a good pairing. You could just try and find a way to keep Randall around for next year. And if you trade for Mitchell, maybe you get the buy-in from Randall, and he's like, okay, this looks like it's going somewhere well. I want to see where this, at least starts out. And maybe you get him playing better this year. I think there's a couple of sides to the Julius Randle coin, depending on whether you believe a couple of years ago was an outlier for him or if that was the norm. Is he capable of putting up a great season again? I mean, he just posted terrible percentages this year and his effort looked lackluster a lot of the times. And you wonder if he really wants to be in this New York spotlight, if he really wants to be around those fans and in MSG Stadium. It's tough. I don't know if it's for him. Maybe he needs a change of scenery, but I think regardless, the Knicks need to keep around as much talent as they have. And Julius Randle is still like their most talented player. RJ Barrett hopefully can be that guy, but realistically right now, Randle is still their best player.
Yeah, you're right. And he could play next to Donovan. I do think the Jazz would love to have him. I think he's a perfect fit at the power forward spot next to Rudy Gobert. I think Rudy covers up so many defensive deficiencies that Randle had to do with the Knicks. A lot of times he was playing center, and that's just not right for him. So I think he would be a great fit for the Jazz, and I think that would make them. You're right. They'd probably have to put in a few more picks in this. And I like Randle, but I think what my move here is to do what the Timberwolves did 2 years ago and just kind of completely blow up the team, leave the very basic bones. And because I think this would be great. So you don't shed the contract, but Mike Conley's up in 2 years, 22, 24 million in those years. You get a decent veteran. He plays next to Donovan. I know he likes playing with Donovan. Donovan likes playing with him. Is he your point guard of the future? No, but it puts you in some place. And Donovan Mitchell, you do anything to raise your ceiling. You trade anything because he certainly will raise the ceiling of this team. And you can go work off that. Kemba Walker was just a whatever. He was a throw-in contract at the end of last season. RJ and Randle are obviously the points in that. But yeah. So also, aside from that trade, I do have them trading up. And it's giving Emmanuel quickly and their 11th pick for the 4th pick. And that way, and with that 4th pick, I have them taking Keegan Murray. And he's your Julius Randle replacement. I mean, 23 points, almost 24 points in college. A steal and a half a game, block and a half a game. Guy's incredible. I think he's certainly almost 40% from college three. I think he's a great fit. I think defensively he would be great to fit into whatever this new culture is. You do go out, re-sign Mitchell Robinson, but you're open to getting a new center, maybe a more healthy, more consistent center you can have on the floor, like an Andre Drummond. All things considered, he's not the best defensive player, but he's a good defensive player in my mind.
Yeah, no, that would be a great trade for them, but I just don't see why Sacramento Kings would want to drop back 7 spots
fifth.
To get Emmanuel quickly.
Fifth.
The Pistons. So the Pistons would drop back 7 for Quigley. I mean, maybe it's worth it, but I just don't know if Quigley is worth that. I mean, wouldn't you rather just, if you were Detroit, take Keegan Murray or take Shaedon Sharpe?
I have them looking at some of those wings. We've talked about it, and I think if they fall to 11, a lot of those wings that are interested would still be there. Yeah, they'd probably have to put in maybe another first. But trading up to get Keegan Murray should be like their goal. And I think he could fall at 4. I think he could. Fall to 5, maybe 4. I mean, he could be that 4th man. A lot of people are talking about. Shaedon Sharpe could be that 4th guy. It depends what the Kings are into. It depends who drafts that 4th pick. I'm still not convinced it'll be the Kings, but I think that's what they're trying out for. But that way you get a starting lineup of Conley, Mitchell, Fournier, Murray, and Robinson. Is it a playoff team? No. Is it a great team to work off of? Yeah, I think that's better than what they would have. And that's
they need to work on getting in top end talent in here, and whether that's through the draft with top picks or it's bringing in a star, they need to do that. And picking at 11 isn't going to get them much in terms of people that are going to help them immediately. And I don't know what they're going to get out there on free agency. It would be awesome if they could free up some space for a guy like Jalen Brunson or, Zach LaVine even. But who knows? That's really tough to do when you've got, some bad contracts that are going to be hard to get rid of.
Yeah, and I don't know how many suitors there are for the bad contracts, like Nerlens Noel, like you mentioned, Alec Burks maybe has out of the three, Evan Fournier, Nerlens Noel, and Alec Burks. Alec Burks would probably have the most suitors, just because his position and his role is very transferable onto any team. Really, just a shooter or offense off the bench, rather than Nerlens Noel, who can't space the floor. You're just getting a defensive center, which some teams would need, but maybe not for 8-10 million. I forget how much he's making.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's making right around 10 million, which for your backup center, is a little steep. But maybe some teams who have some defensive challenges would still be into it. But likely, I think a lot of those guys, they're looking to get traded somewhere with a pick attached to them. So they're going to like OKC, or they're going to Detroit or something. But
right, and
how many picks do you want to trade away if you're the New York Knicks?
Yeah,
you just traded away a first-round pick last year for Cam Reddish.
Exactly, and I don't think the Knicks are in the position to trade any more picks away from their bad contracts. Usually that happens when the team is winning, because they can afford. They know that pick. What they're not trading a high pick, they're trading some pick in the 20s. Usually when they attach a pick to a bad contract. But now, I mean, that's too risky now, and I wouldn't do that. A lot of these contracts I'd try to ride out, especially Evan Fournier's. I don't. You'd have to give up way too much to get rid of that contract. I think you might as well hold on to him and see what he can do. Try to get a new coach. How he gets a different role, much like with the Magic, where he's not just a off-ball catch and shoot guy, where you can have him have some creation as a third, fourth scoring option rather than just a catch and shoot guy, which it's proven that's not what he's good at. But
yeah,
I think we agree. Tibbs got to go.
I mean, I would love to see it happen. Think it's going to be a bit, but New York Knicks, they're a mess as always. Have one good season. First year with Tibbs, he comes in, wins Coach of the Year. Everybody's like, "Oh, why don't you like Thibodeau? He's awesome." And then now you're seeing the aftermath. The people getting tired of him. Randall wants to quit on him because he doesn't like playing for him. This is how it goes with a Thibodeau-run team. So. Unfortunately, the Knicks continue to hire bad head coaches. It's been the story of them our entire lifetime. I remember they hired the former Suns coach. I think lasted like a year. I forget what is it, Hornacek.
Jeff Hornacek.
Yeah, Jeff Hornacek. Mike D'Antoni was a bad hire. David Fizdale was a terrible hire. God, I mean, who else? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of others, but. The list just goes on, and that's the way it goes, because it starts at the top. The owner Dolan, he's terrible. He's one of the worst owners in all sports. Yeah, he's one of the worst owners in all sports. Like, the Knicks are, I think, maybe the most valuable franchise in the league, and like in terms of profit wise, and that's why he's able to not give a shit. Wants to maybe make the team better, or says all the right things, but continues to make the wrong moves because he doesn't really give a shit.
Even their drafting hasn't been good. Their only bright spot drafting was, at the time, Emmanuel Quickley, who was a nice pickup, but he's kind of fizzled out. RJ Barrett, even though RJ's doing well, but as a third pick overall, there are better players in that draft that they should have drafted over RJ Barrett.
Yeah, they got kind of screwed in that draft. I feel like RJ Barrett was up in that top echelon of players in the draft, and he was really on the tail end of those top guys. So it was kind of like, oh man, if we had one of the top two picks here, it would be amazing. We get either Zion or Ja, but instead you're just kind of settling for RJ after that.
Oh yeah. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, RJ was supposed to be the number one overall draft pick up until like Zion's really started doing well in Duke.
Oh yeah. RJ Barrett had a lot of hype on him. I mean, the three guys at Duke, him, Reddish, and Zion, all had a ton of hype around them in some regards, and well applied, I guess, because they all got drafted in the first round. Two of them top 3 picks, so good for them. But now we're seeing in the NBA, it's like, there's better players. There's better players in the draft. It's tough to scout it right. I just feel like the Knicks, they don't scout well enough. Like, they rarely take the home run swing and get it right. I will say the one time recently they did take a home run swing and they got it right was Kristaps Porzingis. Like, when they drafted him, he was looking fantastic before he started getting injured. And then they were able to trade him away, and I mean, hell, I guess they kind of won that trade because he sucked in Dallas. I don't even remember if they got anything worth a damn back, but anything was fine, like in terms of what they were getting out of Porzingis, because he was just turning into a cancer. And now we're seeing he's on the Washington Wizards and still doesn't give a shit.
Nope. They got 2 first-round picks out of it, I think. That was the main.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Dennis Smith Jr., who was a bust. But like they could have gotten. I mean, I don't think DeAndre Hunter is better because of all of his injuries than RJ Barrett. But Tyler Herro, Darius Garland, these are guys they could have drafted instead of RJ Barrett. Granted, obviously hindsight is a lot harder, but
yeah, Garland would be great right now.
Garland would be great.
No, I mean hindsight's always 20/20, but I think we spent a lot of time on the Knicks. It's going to end up being a long video. Hopefully, somebody ends up watching that one. But we are going to move on to our next topic, guys. We are talking about the best role players in our league. And that's kind of something that's hard to define sometimes, right? What is a role player? Because sometimes, it can be a starter. A role player can be a starter. It could be someone coming off the bench. It could be anybody. It's obviously not a star, but it's a guy who fills a specific part of the team and does it exceptionally well. So I want to hear your top 5 and give me a brief reason for why you rank them there.
Yeah, I'm gonna start at 5 just because last time we started at 1, but that was a little more obvious. 5. I'll start at 5. I didn't include any 6 men or any young star. I was looking at some lists, looking at a bunch of stuff from what they thought during my research, and Desmond Bane's not a role player. He's a legit scoring option. So is Jordan Clarkson. He's not a role player. He's a 6th man. He's the 6th man of that team. He's a 6th man of the year candidate. Granted, that's a role. I didn't include them in role player. I wouldn't call them a role player. They're scoring options. So my fifth best role player in the league, I have PJ Tucker. Primary defender for the Bucks. I mean, he shoots close to 40%, but he's not a shooter. He raises the intensity, helps out the culture of the Heat. Obviously, he was a huge part on why the Bucks won. He can hit from 3, like I said, almost 40%, but he's there as to be a primary defender, defense. I think he was the 5th best role player this year. Well, who's your 5th? We can bounce back and forth. Who's your 5th?
My 5th, I actually had a 6th man here. I put Tyler Herro, so we can debate a little bit about that, but I thought he filled his role exceptionally well this year in being their scorer and being able to spark the plug for them whenever needed. And I don't really see him becoming a starter anytime soon because his defense isn't good enough. So I don't know how you couldn't think he's a role player because, he provides something that team isn't getting from anyone else. And that's, aggressive scoring, that is swagger, that is, Tyler Herro. So,
I mean,
that's my guy.
There's no doubt, like, the talent, what he brings to the team is good. I don't classify him as a role player because, honestly, he's probably the 2nd scoring option on that team. He might be the 6th man, but he still plays heavy minutes. He's that 2nd scoring option. I just don't like, and especially 6 men, because we'll eventually have a list of our top 5 6 men in the league too. And I just don't see, like, a role player is just some guy who's outside of that, even outside of the defensive lead of a team. And that's kind of what I lean into. He has too big of a role. I don't know. Everyone's a role player in the NBA. Everyone that's why it's so like
it's hard to argue.
Yeah, it's so relative. Every NBA player, but I just kind of picked smaller guys with smaller roles. So that's why he's Tyler Herro's not on my list. I get it.
Fair enough.
But he was too big of a scoring option to put in here.
No, I got you. I mean, he's still under 20 points per game, so I consider it not on that star trajectory yet, and I don't think
all-stars don't need to make 20 points. Chris Middleton averages like 18 points a game, and he's an all-star. He's also the 2nd scoring option on that team.
He does a lot of other things too.
But who's your 4th?
And he's
yeah.
My 4th, I put Bobby Portis. I think he's been an exceptional defender for the Bucks, filling in with what they lost for PJ Tucker as best he can, and really gets the energy going for that team as well. He's been a fun player to watch, and excited to see what type of contract he can haul in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, assuming he declines his player option. Yeah, I think he's a player option. So Bobby Portis is great. He would probably be my 6th if I made he fell on my list. He would be. I would have to debate him when we make our sixth man of the league. But yeah, he's great. He's wonderful. His perimeter defense kind of limited some of his time in the playoffs, but he still shoots great. He plays so well off of Giannis, and he's a piece they have to hold on, do everything they can to hold on to. Who I had at 4 was Jay Crowder. I mean, he's always going to be. Yeah, he's always going to be on my role player list. I actually have 2 Phoenix Suns. Spoiler alert. So
okay,
but he's the prototypical 3-and-D. He's like like when you think about it. If you look at his numbers, they don't lean to what you think he should, but you got to watch him on court. I mean, he can take over a game with with his 3-point shot, but also he's a dog. He's great for culture. He has such this positive aggression in the locker room. He's a great vet to have. Every young guy loves having him on the team. I think he just does a lot, and his role is perfect for this Suns team. And I know Chris Paul was super excited to play with him when he came to the Suns.
Yeah, Jay Crowder's been a great 3-point shooter, a solid defender for years, and somebody who players love to be with. So it's no surprise that he's been on contenders for the last few years because he's a glue guy in a lot of ways and really helps bring teams together.
No, definitely. You can see the effect he had on Marcus Smart even today. I mean, granted, Marcus Smart is Marcus Smart. That's who he is. But Jay Crowder really molded a lot of his culture and what Marcus Smart does today because Jay Crowder was the vet for Marcus Smart when he first started off back in the Isaiah Thomas days.
Crazy to think about.
Oh, yeah.
My next guy, I have Will Barton. A guy who's been a 15-point per game scorer for years and can be counted upon to really get things going when your team is in a slump. And for the Nuggets, he's been a welcome player for years because they've had injuries around the team. He's been able to step up. When he was on Portland, it was a similar deal. He's just always that guy that you can count upon to figure it out and get your team out of the slump. And really think he's been valuable for that reason, and I think he'll continue to be. So really exciting player to watch for me.
Yeah, Will Barton, I really like Will Barton. He's been a relief for them. I know I said in our video that I wanted to trade him, but that doesn't take anything away from him being a really nice player, a nice vet for that team. I mean, they, like you said, they have had injuries, and he had to step up and become a scoring option, and he was. And he is a role player because he wasn't intended to be that scoring option, but that's what he does. He can do. He's a great all-around wing to have. Deserve it. So he's not on my list, but he's definitely top 10 role players in this league.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love Will Barton. He's made a spot in this league for a long time for a good reason. And
for sure.
I don't think the Nuggets should get rid of him anytime soon unless they can find somebody who can replace what he does,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. My 3 is Dorian Finney-Smith, and he actually didn't appear on anybody's role player list, and it was pretty crazy because he's the primary defender for that Mavs team. He fits a lot of it. He's a small ball power forward or small forward when they need it. 39% from 3. He's everything that you need for a guy next to Luka, and I think it's kind of crazy that nobody talks about him enough. His defense was great. I mean, the Mavs made it to the Western Conference Finals as him as a starter. That should only show the impact of what he has on that team.
No doubt. I mean, he really broke out this year. I think still not a lot of people really know who Dorian Finney-Smith is. I think the playoffs helped them get a better idea, but I think he's going to have to continue to show out for people to figure out who he is.
Definitely. No super well-developed player. I love Dorian.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's really stepped up, and he had some big games that helped take the weight off Luka's shoulders a bit this year.
Yeah.
My next guy, I have PJ Tucker. I know you mentioned him earlier as your 5th. Maybe not the same player he used to be, but just put in a great season this last year after I didn't expect him to have a whole lot left in the tank. He's still got a little bit of scoring ability there, able to drive to the rim. And hell, man, that Heat culture, help him build that. Fantastic defender as always. And, it's a shame that they weren't able to make it further in these playoffs because we would have really been able to see what he was capable of.
Oh, yeah. Tyler Herro struggled a bit, and his injury really kind of limited why they fell out of the conference finals. But no, yeah, PJ Tucker, like I said, this is one of his best 3-point shooting seasons of his career that he's ever had. So that's something to say. Even though he's slowing down in some aspects, he's still staying up there. He's like, 37? So he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, my man's
like
is
that.
old, but he's figuring it out.
Another guy I have as my second is Al Horford. I mean, we did a thing about him.
Sure.
He is a huge role player. He's not a scoring option, but he's the best all-around role player on my list. I mean, he does playmaking. He's one of the smartest NBA players out there. 3, you got D, you get inside D, you get it all. And he's a perfect player, vet for all the young players. Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum. He's a great fit, and he's showing that he's the best role player in the playoffs right now.
There you go, man. I've got my number one is a little bit more controversial, and maybe he hasn't had as great of a playoffs as he should, but Draymond Green is still the best role player in the NBA because he can fill it up on every angle. His passing ability for his position is fantastic. Obviously, everybody knows his antics getting into people's heads. It goes too far sometimes with his flopping and whatever, but you can't deny that this man is one of the best, role players in the league, being able to glue that Warriors team together, get the most out of his teammates, and just being a great guy to be around. Like, you hear nothing but great things from Steph and Clay from wanting to play with Dre. And, if that wasn't the case, I don't think he'd have nearly the same success. Like, if he wasn't on the Warriors, who would Draymond Green be?
No, that's exactly. I'm not even mad. Like, the reason he's not in mine is because his offense has fallen off a cliff. And that's why he's not in my top 5. But I love the pick. I mean, it's fully justified. I get it. Like we said, this is a very relative list. I get why he'd be your number one. I'm sure he's many people's number ones. He has a role and he does it perfection. He's in the finals because without him, I don't know if they'd be where they are because of how good he is in his role. And it's such a rare archetype to find a power forward like that who back in the time in his prime could space the floor, but now defensive and playmaking, you don't really get that. And he's a small ball center. You can't get that from any other player in the league. I'm confident. And what he does is, and like I said, he breeds this good culture for them. He's very much Pat Bev, Marcus Smart type player, or they're more like him rather. But that's awesome. My number one.
And and before you say that, today I read that Draymond, Clay, and Steph are now the most winningest trio in playoff history.
Really?
They've won more playoff games than any other trio. So they have surpassed Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Tim Duncan.
That's a fucking
huge accomplishment to each of them. They've been a huge reason. I mean, obviously, they are the reason this dynasty is a thing. And you really just got to tip your cap to them. I mean, all drafted by the Warriors.
Yeah, some like SportsCenter, ESPN milestones are like, man, they're like, LeBron just passed the only time somebody has worn Nike shoes with it on the date of in the month of March, and he's 34 years old, but also while he left his contacts at home and used someone else's but that's a milestone. That's a legit milestone. Manu, Tony Parker, that's insane. Tim Duncan, one of the top 10 greatest of all time. That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. No, I mean, you gotta just appreciate it. Sure, they had some help along the way,
of course,
by bringing in another superstar, but grown guys who figured it out, and they've won championships on their own together, and they look like they're gonna win another this year. Who knows what's beyond that? I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah, insane. But my first guy is Mikal Bridges. Suns. He was my defensive player of the year. I mean, he's the ultimate 3-and-D type player you can get. He's efficient. He's that's it. That's all I can get. He was the best perimeter defender this league for me, and he hit his 3-point shots efficiently. So that's why he's my number one role player in the league.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's a great player. I guess in my mind, I didn't think of him as a role player, but again, that's the definition of trying to figure out what a role player is. It's hard. Everybody talks about it differently. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments who you think the best role player in the league is, what the hell a role player is. Let us know. We're trying to get educated here. But yeah, Mikal Bridges, love him. Obviously, The Sixers are still regretting trading him away when they had his mom employed for them. I mean, just shit you cannot make up. Mike Bridges, yeah, great player.
That's funny. Yep. But speaking of great players, I want to talk about the Pelicans and Zion's fit with them. So we both talked about how they're probably going to make the playoffs this year. They have a lot of talent. They had a lot of success in the play-in. It was fun to see. BI really came out. CJ's looking into his own. Valanciunas was good. But how does Zion fit on this team? Do you think he's going to fit in perfectly? Do you think there's some worries on this team?
I think my only worry is with like CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, are they going to be able to still get their shots and figure it out? Like Brandon Ingram is a great ISO player. CJ McCollum's a great mid-range player. So ideally, hopefully they can still get to their spots. But do we believe Zion is a good enough passer to get the ball to them as well? Do we believe Ingram and McCollum are good enough passers where this team is going to have great ball movement? I worry about that. I worry about the ball movement on this team. I worry about the spacing. I don't know if the shooting is good enough on this team, but it's got a lot of talent. This team has a hell of a lot of talent. I really like the coach. I think, they can certainly figure it out. And when you have a guy as talented as Zion, you bring him into the team and you figure it out. He's the best player they have. And I think everybody else there should know that. So hopefully they can figure it out.
Yeah, I break it down to three issues, and this is really where the weight of what Willie Green says is going to carry in this locker room. This is where we hope there's no issues, that somebody's willing to take a step back, because somebody will have to take a step back. So the first concern is spacing. And obviously Valanciunas I'm pointing towards more. He's not a three-point shooter. He spends no time in the corner. 70% of his shots came within 10 feet of the basket. Only 3% came from the corner. So that's concerning. Granted, he's a center. You can't expect him to have that. But when you have a talent like Zion, that's really going to clog the paint, and that's really going to affect what's going to happen. I mean, I like the trade for Valanciunas. I think it's going to help in the long run. But that's something Willie Green's got to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Willie Green made some smart adjustments last year, but he's a young second-year coach now going into this season, and he's going to have some challenges ahead of himself. Some high expectations after they were able to make the playoffs, and they've got Zion coming back. I think he can figure it out, but there's definitely some high expectations for these guys.
Yeah, that's not as the most concerning as some people think it's going to be. I mean, he's still, like, Valanciunas is spreading the floor every season. He's shooting more outside of the paint, and maybe he could adjust that way, or maybe just spends less minutes on the floor with Zion and more as a point leading that backup team. But we'll see. My second is the usage rating. So Zion's usage rating from last full season he played was 79, so about 30%. And that's a lot for a big man. So let's look at the usage. So BI is similar, 30%. CJ, similar, 30%. And Valanciunas is 24, which is also huge for a big man, like I just said. Plus, Valanciunas led the team in possessions. So this is where this is one of the harder parts in Willie Green's job, because who deserves to have that ball? I think Zion's usage and Valanciunas should rightfully so get taken back. I mean, you can't have that much usage rating. I mean, obviously the math doesn't work out with Valanciunas in there because that was last season, and Zion's going to change it. Is Zion a good enough playmaker? The answer is no, not with the team. But BI's a better playmaker. CJ's miles better playmaker. Zion's assists 3.2 in the last full season. Turnovers 2.7. That's not good turnover ratio. And I think, does he need the ball to be effective? I don't think he does. And I think CJ's really going to help that out. I mean, granted, he had Lonzo Ball when he had that usage rating, so it could be up and down. Granted, Lonzo's always out in injury. So I think that's certainly something that can be worked out, but that's something Zion's going to have to take a step back in, is his usage. Because I don't think he's the effective guy on ball they need.
I think he's efficient enough where you cut down on his usage, it's going to be fine. Like, he shoots a high percentage. He gets into the paint very well. So I don't think like that's as big of a deal. And with CJ McCollum, I think he should be your primary ball handler as he can handle it. And he's able to score at that level, which is necessary in today's game. And it's going to open up things for your Zion when he cuts to the rim. And that guy can get up so high. Like the alley-oops should be abundance at that point. Get him open, get some screens, get this guy going. He's a freight train when he goes down through the lanes. So I don't see how cutting down his usage would make him a worse player. I think it would maybe make him smarter and hopefully cut down on the turnovers even.
Yeah, correct. That's right. I have CJ as their point guard going in next season with Herb Jones playing next to him as for perimeter defense. That's how I and obviously the other three line up. But my last concern is shots taken. So Zion took 17 shots a game his All-Star season. This was last season, full season he played. CJ this last season took 19 shots. BI took 18 shots. Valanciunas took 13 shots. So the whole team last season, this is without Zion, took 88 shots. And the team, their big four will take up 67 shots, right? That's 76% of the shots come from 4 players on their team, and that's not going to work. That's not going to happen. So who's going to take back shots? I'm looking at CJ. I'm looking at Valanciunas. I think BI might take a shot less per game, but CJ's going to see a hit. Valanciunas is going to see a hit, especially with the spacing, referring to Valanciunas. I think Zion will keep. I think they should keep him around 17 shots. That's great. If not more. Him and BI should not change. 17, 18 shots. CJ, 19 shots isn't going to cut it. Obviously, it depends on the game, spacing, etc. But
I totally agree. I mean, CJ is going to need to become more of a facilitator role with your traditional point guard next year who has those scoring abilities. So he's going to hopefully find himself in more open opportunities to still get his points, and hopefully, cutting down on the shots isn't going to mess up with his game too much.
No. I think he was well aware that when he got traded this team, that was the expectation. I think he only shot 19 because obviously he knew, and the team knew Zion was out. I think that was his expectation coming. And I know CJ is a very humble guy. He's not a big personality in the locker room. So I think
he's excited. He's fine with taking that step back because you get to play with a guy like Zion and a guy like Brandon Ingram. And those are fun players to play with. He just spent 6 seasons with the Blazers, and he was with Damian Lillard the whole time. Lillard got plenty of shots, but now he gets to do something new. He gets to play with some better big men rather than a great point guard, and he gets to be more of that primary ball handler. So I think, he should be rejuvenized in that and be excited about the opportunities that's going to present, because I think you give me a choice of which team I'd rather have right now between the Pelicans and Blazers, I would absolutely take the Pelicans. Going forward the next 5 years, I would way rather take what they got than the Blazers.
Oh yeah, miles better. I think they're going to be one of the most versatile offenses, assuming everyone gets on page. I think it's going to take some bit too. I don't see them coming right out of the blocks fast, especially if Zion plays the first day. But certainly, I'm excited to see what this team looks like on the floor. I think Zion can fit. They have a lot of work to do and a lot of changes to make for him to fit. He can't just jump into this team and they're going to run off the blocks. I think Willie Green has a lot of work in front of him. I don't doubt Willie Green can do it. He's a very impressive head coach.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll see where they go. We talked enough about Zion's fit with the Pelicans. I think we're excited to see how that goes. But now we're going to talk about, in general, what it takes to get to that next level. What's going to be the easiest fit to win a championship, right? And we're talking about who's easier to build around, a guard or a big man. And when we look through the history books, we've seen an incredible array of players from both ends, from the Tim Duncans of the world in the big men group to the Steph Currys and the Kobe Bryants of the guards. And I ask you, Dalton, which one would you rather build around as your best player on the team? A superstar guard or a superstar big man?
So both, it's not easy to build around people. I do want to say, for the sake of everyone, we're not pretending like this is a 2K rebuild. We know how hard it is in real life to build around any star. But contrary, I do think it's easier to build around a star guard than a star big man, especially with the way today is. There's certain deficiencies that if a guard has, it's not the end of the world for that team. And I like, for my example, is Trae Young and Cat. You look at Trae Young and the success the Hawks have, and they have all this stuff. Trae Young's just about the worst defensive player in the league. He's not good. He can't be good. He's very limited by his physical, and it affects the team not as little. I mean, a lot of it's on the coaching and the other personnel, but you can cover up a guard that's not good at defense. But you look at Cat, and when he has not been good on the floor, Timberwolves have been awful, terrible. And it's been so hard to build around because big men, their initial role is to play defense and get rebounds. That's been their role in the NBA forever. And if he can't do that, it's so hard. It struggles because it opens up the paint. Rather than guards, their initial archetype is supposed to be shoot and pass the ball, play make. And as long as they do that, I think that's easy. It's just it's easier for them. I mean, defense is not very little. I mean, even shooting's not required for some guards. Look at Russell Westbrook. Look at John Wall. I mean, granted, neither one has won a championship, but they've both been all-stars, and they've been on really good teams in their own right. And John Morant, he's not the best shooter, but he's been able to be covered up. He's not the best defensive player either. Granted, he's not bad at either, but they can be covered up. Rudy Gobert, offense, can't be. It's hard. It's tough. He limits them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think, a big part of where the debate lands is there's not a whole lot of big men that are worth building around. Like in the league right now, there's only like 3 or 4 that you could legitimately say you're going to build around that guy. Jokic, Embiid, and Cat. And outside of that, I don't know who you can legitimately say, okay, we're going to build around this big man. Obviously, there's your power forwards like Giannis. Like, I guess he's a big man.
Yep. Anthony Davis when the weather is good.
Anthony Davis is a horrible example. No one should build around him.
I said when the weather is good because apparently everything affects his injury.
He said the other day he hasn't taken a shot since April 6th.
Ridiculous, but I'm not trying to rant on that. Ridiculous.
Yeah. But when we're talking about building between a guard and a big man, it's easier to build around a guard because there's just simply more great ones that come into the league and are available. Everybody wants to be the shooter. Everybody wants to be that star, that athletic guy who's dominating the team. That's why you have a lot of these guys like Donovan Mitchells and your Jaylen Browns and your Bradley Beals, and teams are trying to build around those guys the best they can. But it's hard if you can't find a great big man either, because like I said, there's just not a whole lot of them out there. But with a guard, at least you can put him into your starting lineup. Okay, I've got some good shooting here. I've got a guy who leads my offense. Where do we go from there? Who helps build off this guy's strengths? And you're seeing it even with the Dallas Mavericks. They almost made it to the finals this year where they don't have another star around their point guard right now. And they would love to get one, I think, but simply put, they just put some good enough role players around them and they figured it out.
Exactly. And their center, their main big man, only played 10 minutes a night. The Warriors with their small ball lineup with Draymond Green, they're showing that you don't need a center. You can play without a center. Look at the Rockets 2-3 years ago. PJ Tucker was their center. That poor guy. Bless his heart. Ugh. But that's proven. And there's one outlier where I'll mention. That's the Nuggets. But Jokic is a one in a generation type player where you can see a big man have that playmaking, that shooting, that offensive ability, and still hold it up on the defensive end. He's deserved for the last 2 MVPs because of that. And he is the outlier where I look at it where you can have an all-star guard without a big man, but you can't have a big man without a guard.
I agree. He's an outlier in a way, but like even with him, they haven't won a championship. They haven't been close. Who knows if they'll get there? I think they've got enough great pieces around them where certainly they could. But it's like the similar thing with Joel Embiid. Like he's a great player. They probably should have made a championship by now.
Yeah.
No. Not necessarily won one, but they should have been in a finals by now with Joel Embiid. They've had plenty of great opportunities, and they haven't been able to do it because no matter how great of a night he has, he still has to have greatness around him for them to do anything. And they've tried finding that next guy to be a star next to him for years, and they cannot figure it out because they're just having a hard time with it for many reasons. But they've got their star big man. They're like, well, we can't lose him, so we're building around him.
Yeah, and my last point is, I mean, I can name 3 guards who have carried their team, who have legitimately carried their team to a conference finals. Trae Young carried his team to a conference finals without a dominant big man or he had a big man.
Clint Capella is a
but
good
he
big man.
wasn't.
And John Collins is decent.
Clint Capella, if you remember, in that series was still limited by time because he can't space it. And John Collins was decent. He's in and out for injury. Obviously, we mentioned the Mavericks. Remember, Damian Lillard also carried his team to a conference finals. Yep. And he had Nurkic, which sure, Nurkic is a good big man, but it was because of Damian
but not
Lillard.
Like a star by any. Yeah, no, I agree. You can see a star guard really take over, and it wasn't Kobe who joined Shaq; it was Shaq who joined Kobe.
That's right. Perfect. And that's now forever the archetype. Whenever they mention players, like look at Giannis, they're like, Giannis can't do it without a Kobe. Shaq needs his Kobe, and they got Drew Holiday. He has Chris Middleton. So it just requires more from a big man. That's why it's easier to build around a guard like that. So.
Yeah, for sure. That's the age-long debate, though, guys. Big man versus guard, big versus small. It's all about how you use it, though. So, we're always strictly ball business. We typically only talk about balls, but you heard it here first. We talked about big man versus little man. Moving on to our next topic, guys. Our last one of the episode. Cleveland Cavaliers offseason blueprint. They have an exciting season, hopefully coming up here. Looked like he was going to have that rookie of the year before some injuries. This is a team I'm really excited about, and I'm really interested to see what they do. I think like the number one thing we're all thinking about is what are they going to do with Colin Sexton? He is a super talented player. He deserves probably at least $20 million a year. Is it worth it as the Cavaliers to give him that? I just don't think so. Like, try to get something in return for him, in my opinion, is the best move for them this offseason. Like, it sucks that he didn't play this year because of his injury, but somebody is going to be willing to trade for him because they know what they saw before this year. He's a talented player, and, lots of teams would be willing to bring in a guy like that.
Yeah, and he's young. I mean, how many people recently have really just been hurt by injury, but that haven't come back? Injuries mean very little now aside from the time they're missing. But yeah, I mean, everyone knows he's going to be a sign and trade. That's kind of one of the openest things, and I have a trade for him. But let's look. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Actually, defense is something that they've been really good at. They're 5th in defense, 9th in field goal. These are all good things. 15th in 3-point percentage. I think they're lacking a star. They're lacking some veterans here and there. So I think that's going to be kind of their push. They need offense. They need another scoring option besides Darius Garland. I don't think Karras can be that number 2. I think Darius should be in the number 2 because of his playmaking. He's obviously an elite playmaker now, and he's grown into that. But Karras is not a good enough shooter to be in the 2. Maybe he could play their 3 if Lauri Markkanen wants to go to the bench, as he should go to the bench. But maybe a 6-man type deal for Karras. But I don't think they should move on from Karras. I think he's a great piece. But certainly sign and trade for Colin Sexton. I've combined both those things and getting a good 3-point shooter at 2. You get some playmaking off of that. And you should get off of Kevin Love's contract. So here's what I have. I can jump right into this trade. So Colin Sexton and Kevin Love for D'Angelo Russell.
Oh man, it's an interesting one. I mean, as the Wolves,
do the Wolves do it?
I don't know. I mean, like Colin Sexton would be pretty nice on the Wolves.
Yep.
Kevin Love though can go kick rocks. So that's tough. I probably, if I was the Wolves, I'd probably do it. I'd probably pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I mean, what that does is kind of put Pat Bev is now your primary playmaker. Is that enough playmaking? I think they're going to ask a lot of Anthony Edwards, and I think they should, like they should be doing for years, is lean more on Cap for some more playmaking. You get a good veteran. Kevin Love comes back. Would he want to? I don't fucking dude. You're getting paid $30 million a year. You're gonna go where anybody.
I mean,
tells
he's
you to
been
go.
living in Cleveland the last few years. How much worse can Minnesota be? I mean, come on.
Plus, and he gets. I'm sure like all Timberwolves fans hate Kevin Love, but if he comes back, everyone's like, "Oh, Kevin Love's back!" You know, that's.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get over it pretty quick.
Yeah, and
no doubt.
All things considered, he's a good veteran to have, and especially on this team. Could he be your starting power forward? No. Could he be a six man? Yeah, I think he could play next to Malik Beasley. I mean, it really tightens you up there. And Colin Sexton, I would love to see. He's another dog. Put him next to. He's very much like Anthony Edwards, and he is a good shooter, as people don't like to talk about. But he is a good shooter. He shoots.
He's efficient.
He is an efficient shooter. So I like that. I like that. And plus, so on the Cavs side. Cavs get a playmaker who could be your primary playmaker, but now you get a secondary one. Can he play off ball? He can play off ball, which is nice. And he gets to fit into some more catch and shoot. He's not the primary because he struggled with that on the Timberwolves, being the primary playmaker. So let's put him over there. They get offense. They get a nice 17 points per game. Is he more a versatile scorer than Karras? Yeah, he is. So you get all that stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely not a bad trade. Could see it working out for both teams. I think another team to watch out for with Colin Sexton is the New York Knicks. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see them make a run at him. I think a lot of teams could use a scorer like him. I know the Pistons are interested as well. They want to get somebody solid next to Cade Cunningham.
Oh yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome for the Pistons. But I think their biggest priority this offseason, aside from trading Colin Sexton, is giving that extension to Darius Garland. What do you think he deserves? What do you think kind of contract? What kind of contract do you think?
Well, he just made an All-Star selection, so you pretty much have to give him like at least $20 million a year. We're probably looking at, like a 4-year, $125 million contract.
4-year, 100. Yeah, I think they're gonna offer him a 5. I think they're gonna give him 5 years, $32 million. I think, and I'd see that. That's tough. It's tough.
He's gonna get like the max, basically. He's gonna get like 5 years, 150 right away.
Close to a max. But yeah, I think Cleveland has to do it. Made an All-Star game before before his rookie contract was up. I think you're gonna have to. It's the third year All-Star. True. I think you have to. Plus, he's such a major part of this. And Cleveland is a small market. You have to remember that. So I know 5 years, lock him down. He's proof of concept. He's there. I don't see him falling off where he is.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously a great draft pick. It was a surprise at the time when they selected him because they already had Colin Sexton. And people are like, the fit between these two is not going to be great. But clearly they're like, yeah, but Darius Garland's the best player available in that draft. We'll take him. We'll figure it out. Now we're at the point where they got to remove one of them. And hey, Darius Garland's the one to keep. So they figured it out. It's been a solid rebuild by Cleveland. They've got Evan Mobley next to him and Jared Allen, who they basically got for free. So really excited to see what this team does next year. I mean, they brought together the old Nets, Karis LeVert and Jared Allen back together. Like, why not bring D'Lo into this now? Nets 2.0.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, might as well. I mean, fuck it. But I
mean, they would have good chemistry. I mean, everybody remembers that GIF where they're doing the dance.
Most exciting bench the NBA has seen in years.
Bring in Rondé Hollis Jefferson. Call it a day.
Yeah, call it. Might as well toss him in there. Yeah. So I think the Cavs are really into this. Of course, they have the 14th pick. There's no prospects that are jumping out of the board where I'm like, oh, they have to draft them. I mean, they have Fast Break has them drafting Malachi Braun, Ohio State freshman. I don't know enough of that, but
yeah,
we'll see. I do think that's worth saying. So next year, next offseason, they'll have a max slot available, and I think it's perfect. I think this is the perfect timing. We talk about a lot of teams. This team in a year, they're ready for a max player. They're ready for bring in a Bradley Beal. So I think that would be I think that's something to look out for. I think they're aware of it, and I think this team is built around bringing in a star like a Bradley Beal, and I think that would be perfect.
Oh well, and the thing is, they're gonna have to bring in that level of contract through a trade. They're not gonna find a star on free agency. It's gonna be hard to do that. I wouldn't hate if if they did a trade with the New York Knicks and brought back Julius Randle, a guy who could fit at their 4. Maybe get rid of Lauri Markkanen, who I don't love, and get a guy who can get some rebounds and some post scoring for you. I wouldn't hate that.
So
if you can find somebody even better than him, great. But I don't know who you're going to get on the trade market that's that great. Like Bradley Beal, I think is a pipe dream.
Yeah. There's a lot of we're going to start seeing a lot more max contracts coming in. I mean, max players level players come into the offseason. I mean, Russell Westbrook, no. Well, if they brought in Julius Randle, what are they doing with Allen? I assume you mean Mobley's.
You mean Allen's the 5? Oh, that's right. They have Mobley and Allen. I forget. Never mind. I guess I forget Markkanen's their 3. That's so weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. They kind of need to find somebody better at the 3 position. I guess like you could put Bradley Beal there, or you could put.
Well, I assume so. Karras would be up, D'Lo would be up, and that's kind of what creates the max slot. So whoever you get would replace them. So they would have a. I imagine they would go out and try to get a 2. But even I think CJ McCollum's up then too. He would be a good fit.
That'd be good, yeah. I mean, thing is, like those you can project like contracts are going to be up by then, but most of these guys get extended before then. Like CJ McCollum's going to get an extension from the Pelicans, I'm sure.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they still have to pay Zion, don't they?
I mean, hell, they gave Valanciunas an extension before he even stepped on the floor for them. Why wouldn't they give McCollum an extension?
I guess. Well, we'll see. I have to see what they do because they're gonna have a lot of salary, the Pelicans. But a few notable free agents for this team I think would be nice. Patty Mills, if he opts out, I think he would be great for this team. I mean, they're losing Ricky Rubio, who never really played for them.
Yeah, they really do need a backup point guard.
I think Tyus Jones too would be an awesome fit. I would love to see Tyus Jones in Cleveland. I think
Tyus wants to start. I think.
He's not going to get a starting partner. but Kyle Anderson, I do think shooting should be something they look into. So like Bryn Forbes, Austin Rivers, great guys to pull in for their bench. Malik Monk, I think he'd be worth giving a contract to. Come to Cleveland, just shoot some threes for us.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Malik Monk is the biggest interest for me.
Hell, maybe find a way to get Max Strus in the building.
Max Strus.
Tell Miami, hey, we're gonna give you 8 first-round picks for Max Strus.
Maybe. I mean, that wouldn't be bad, but there's a lot of options. This Cleveland team, I don't think they can mess up this offseason. I think they've built whatever they do only adds on to them. They were playing with house money last year, and this is where they start to put the chips down and see if they can get out of the play-in.
No doubt. This is a team on the rise. They were top 4 in the East for like half the season.
Yeah.
Would not be surprised at all to see them in that position again. JB Bickerstaff is a great head coach. And, we've seen in the East, like, teams come out of nowhere and really ascend, like the Hawks a couple of years ago and the Knicks as well. And, this year the Celtics really boomed and made it all the way to the finals. Like, Cleveland has the talent. They're really young, but hell, sky's the limit for these guys. I think they have the opportunity to make a championship, in like 3 years, maybe 3-4 years from now. But before then, I mean, they're definitely a solid playoff team who can make some damage, and you never know, what can happen because like we're seeing these old players fall off. We're seeing the Sixers. They're an old team. Like, who knows what they'll be like next year if they're injured, whatever the hell James Harden gives you. Milwaukee's got some players getting older. Miami Heat is a bunch of old players. Brooklyn Nets, bunch of old players. Like, window is opening up and you got to kick your foot through that motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, they're a year behind them, but they're the Grizzlies of the East. That's what I was thinking of them all season. Grizzlies of the East, but a year behind them. So like they're on track. So maybe they'll make the second round next year. We'll see. Maybe someone will jump into superstar status.
Maybe,
but,
yeah.
I mean, very comparable
Garland
teams.
and Mobley have a lot of superstar potential in my mind.
Garland and Mobley, Jaren Jackson, very similar. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how they go. But what do you guys think the Cavs are going to do? What free agent are you guys really excited that they can realistically sign? Let us know down below. Comment.
Yeah.
If you like the trades, let them know. If you guys want to see D'Lo, let us know. Let us know about anything. Seriously.
Yep. I think that's going to be a wrap for us. We were strictly talking balls today, national basketballs, that is, and this was episode 43, the inverse Giannis episode, or what was the other guy's name? John Static.
I already closed the tab. He's gone.
Snack,
he won a championship with the Supersonics.
guy.
Jack something.
Jack Harlow.
Jack Harlow.
I don't know. This was the inverse Giannis episode. We did our best for you. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and you can follow us on anywhere you listen to balls. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Shit. My nose is